Lara Trump, great to see you, Senior Advisor for the Trump campaign. Thanks so much for joining me. Appreciate this.
Oh, you got it. Thank you for having me. Great to be with you.
All right, let me ask the personal question first. How are things at home? Where in the world are you? And is everybody okay?
Everybody's great. I am at home in New York, and full disclosure, have my dog Charlie here with me because this is how it's going. I either have a kid or a dog in the background these days with whatever I'm doing. But listen, we're doing our part. My husband Eric and I are trying to work from home, like so many Americans, I think, right now, and do our part to help stop the spread of coronavirus. Obviously, for anybody out there that has kids, this can be a trying time. But listen, we're trying to look at it. The silver lining of all of this is that we do get to spend more time together as a family, very close quarters as a family, but it's great, and we're really lucky. We're all healthy, so thank God for that.
Americans multitasking for sure. Let me ask you about the coronavirus and what you are telling staffers there, supporters as well, potential voters out there about what they can do, not only to stay safe, but, the last time I checked, there's a general election campaign coming up. And what do you do specifically? How do you cope under these circumstances and still try to win a general election?
Yeah, this is an unprecedented time, obviously, and we're trying to roll with the punches here at the Trump campaign. Currently, our offices are shut down. We're trying to follow the guidelines of the government, and I'm in New York. We have an office in New York, and that will be closed until Governor Cuomo deems it appropriate for people to go back to work. Our office in DC is currently closed as well for a limited time. We'll see when we can reopen that. But in the meantime, we've been doing things virtually from the Trump campaign. We are all working from home, and we are doing things like hosting town halls. We have had a women's town hall that we've had scheduled now for about a week. So Kayleigh McEnany and I, participants in that. And we're going to do more things like that to try and connect across the country with our voters and people that want to support this president. We're still encouraging our volunteers out there to keep doing what you're doing. We do have, to your point, a general election coming up in November, so people are still able to make calls. We know you're home out there, so you better answer your phone when the Trump campaign calls. But obviously, everyone's health is at the forefront of our minds, and we want everybody to stay safe, to stay home, and help stop the spread of the coronavirus. That said, I think the interesting thing is you haven't heard much from Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders throughout this whole process during the coronavirus. They've tried to stay relevant, but I think you're seeing the strong leadership from President Trump, and it's going to be really hard come November to push back against that.
Well, Laura, I was going to ask you about that. When we have heard from Joe Biden just recently, the last time I checked, he was talking about the National Guard twice in the middle of a 10-second sentence. In other words, he's had some stumbles along the way. He calls himself a gaffe machine. How will this work for you guys? In other words, how do you attack or go after a Joe Biden in the general election?
Well, I'll tell you, David, I don't even know if we have to do much. I think Joe's doing it himself in many cases. I mean, it actually, in some ways, I think is a little bit sad to see. It's almost like someone who's kind of past their prime, still kind of maybe being pushed out there by other people. I'm not totally sure what the situation is, but it's not lost on many people in this country.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Joe Biden probably is not as sharp as he used to be, if you can even call him sharp at all. So I think a lot of people wonder cognitively, is Joe Biden okay? And we question that every time we see him take the stage. So as we head towards November, prior to coronavirus, I think if Joe Biden is the nominee for the Democrats, which by all accounts, it looks like they've really propped him up and pushed him out there and made him their default nominee. They've tried to do the same thing to Bernie Sanders they did in 2016 and push him out of the way. Originally, we were looking very much forward to being able to show the great results that Donald Trump produced as president for the past 3.5 years versus what Joe Biden did with basically a lifetime as a politician, which wasn't a heck of a whole lot. Now, as we're looking at the president's response to the coronavirus and we're seeing his great leadership, you see that there are polls out there that are showing that the vast majority of Americans highly approve of the way the president has handled the coronavirus. We're obviously in unprecedented waters. We've never been here as a country. listen, we'll obviously be able to talk about that and show when in a crisis, this is your leader. And I think it's going to be really hard for Joe Biden to say much of anything, because every time he's trying to do it and talk about the coronavirus, he's even stumbling then. So we'll see what he hands to us, but I think he's doing a lot of work for us.
Laura, what's the challenge ahead for you guys as it relates to the rallies? President Trump loves these rallies. They are huge, not just from an enthusiasm standpoint, but honestly from an analytic metric standpoint of what the data that you collect. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the challenges there, because there haven't been these rallies that normally would be, and when do you expect these to at some point continue as we get closer to the general election?
Well, we certainly hope so. I mean, you know how much the president loves getting out there and talking directly to the people of this country. It's the one time that there really is no filter for him. And he loves the energy that he feels from the crowds of people. And, I don't have to tell you, that we get, quadruple the number of RSVPs for most of these rallies than the arenas themselves can actually hold. So we get, on average, like 60,000 people RSVPing plus for these rallies. It has been challenging. We determine a lot from the data we get from the people that sign up to go to a rally. On average, prior to this coronavirus situation, we were seeing that around 20 to 30% of our attendees were registered Democrats. Around 17% of our attendees did not vote in 2016. So these are numbers that are really important to us from the Trump campaign. Obviously, we will take the direction of the president, the federal government, the advisories that they're issuing for people to stay home, to not gather in large groups. We're listening to that. So as soon as it's safe for the president to get back out there and get back out at a rally, believe me, we would love to do that. But obviously, the health and safety of everyone in this country is our top priority. But we certainly do miss getting all the great information that we do gain from the rallies, our voter contacts, the people that we're able to reach out to and ask to donate to the president's campaign, or make sure you get out and vote, make sure you're registered to vote. We can't do that whenever we're not doing the rallies. That said, we are still seeing a lot of participation from that end with everything that we're putting out there from the Trump campaign. So we want to say to everybody who's virtually helping us at home and still volunteering and helping out the president, it's making a big difference.
Let me ask you a little bit about the president and how he's been leading the coronavirus daily briefings that we've been seeing. It's funny that there he is in the daily briefing room and half the media is not there, which is kind of ironic and interesting. But anyhow, tell me a little bit about what you make of him and the sparring a little bit with the media, because they seem to just always want to take him to task on so many different things. What's been your read on that?
Well, it's got to be really challenging. I mean, think about finding yourself in the president's shoes. A month ago, nobody had any idea that this coronavirus was going to be the situation that it is in this country. If you would have told us 3 or 4 weeks ago that most of the country was going to be asked to stay home for several weeks on end, that most of our economy would be shut down, businesses shut down, I mean, it's unheard of. So the president really is walking a fine line between making sure that the health of people in this country is obviously at the forefront, but he also doesn't want to totally shut our country down for an indefinite period of time. We cannot sustain something like that. No country can. He's doing everything he can. He's working around the clock. And then you have these reporters in the briefings asking him the same question 10, 20 times in a row. Sometimes it seems like you hear the same question over and over again. He gets frustrated by it, so it's hard to fault him, I think, for being a little bit testy with people and pushing back on them. I think he's doing such a great job. He will get criticized, David, no matter what he does. You saw that about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, he made sure that people from China who had been in the areas of China that were affected by the coronavirus before it was even a thought here in the United States weren't able to come here. Of course, he got criticized for that. He gets criticized for calling it the Wuhan virus. It originated in Wuhan, China. I mean, this is crazy that these are the kind of things that they're trying to hit him on. But sometimes it seems like, by and large, the leftist mainstream media is desperate to attack this president, even in the face of a crisis like this, even whenever it really seems like he's doing such a great job to the majority of Americans. But listen, he's a fighter. He's going to fight back. He's going to stand up for himself. He's going to stand up for this country and the team of people, by the way, who are working around the clock to keep this country safe, to pull us out of this situation. He's fighting for them too, because they're also feeling, I think, a little bit like maybe they're being attacked as well. So you can't fault him for that.
No, I got to tell you, I think there was someone who said about criticism of Donald Trump by the media. It's like even if Donald Trump cured cancer, the headline would be in the New York Times, Trump puts doctors out of business. So something along those lines. But let me ask you a little bit about women in the suburbs, suburban women. We've heard a lot about it. Here's the mainstream media narrative. I don't need to tell you, oh, he's going to have trouble. The president's going to have trouble in the suburbs with women, independent women, all of that. What is your read on all of that? What's the response to that? I know you have the Women with Trump rallies and virtual town halls and all that. How do you combat that? I know there's a record to combat that, but how do you combat the narrative that's out there, because you have the media pretty much perpetuating that every single day?
Well, I mean, for me, I'll tell you, I am shocked everywhere I go by the number of women specifically who come up to me and talk about how much they love this president. We had several Women for Trump bus tours that we had set up that have been postponed until it's safe for us to be out there. But we have a bright pink bus with Women for Trump on the side. You can't miss us out there around the country. But we're really, our goal with our Women for Trump coalition and all of these events we host is to make sure the women out there in this country know that it's okay to support this president. The media, I think, oftentimes, to your point, their narrative is always that women don't support Donald Trump. An interesting statistic that I always like to point out is that in 2016, about a quarter of our donations to the Trump campaign came from women. In 2019 and 2020, half of the donations coming into the Trump campaign are from women. So while women are, I think, a little afraid out there to voice their opinion, voice their support for this president, which is ridiculous. We live in a time where women and men are equal, and we should have the right to voice our support for whomever we like. I think women are made to feel like they shouldn't do that. So they're not posting on social media. Maybe they're not talking to their friends. I had one woman, just a quick story, which I always find fascinating. She's been walking with this same friend of hers. She lives in California for about 25 years. Every day they go on a walk to work out together. She said this friend of hers, she wasn't sure whether or not this person supported Donald Trump. So they never talked about it. She's terrified to tell this person. I'm like, this is crazy. This is the president of the United States. But I think a lot of women can relate to that out there. So our message is it's okay to support President Donald Trump. The second you start talking about your support, an interesting thing happens. I think women all across this country and men alike feel this way. You go out to dinner with people that maybe you haven't, known very long. And the second one person breaks the ice and says something positive about Donald Trump, then everybody joins in. Oh, we love the president. He's so great, this and that. Right. So we want to encourage people to do that out there. You know what? You might be able to change somebody's mind who maybe heard something on the news that wasn't true. The president calls it fake news. There's a lot of it out there about this president. It's up to all of us to talk about the things he's done, why he's so great for this country, and why we need him for 4 more years.
Laura, as we wrap up, I've known him for 10 years. You've known him longer. But what I've noticed, though, is that just like all of these politicians who love to kiss babies in public and show the softer side, he's the exact opposite. He'd rather show the softer side in private and be the law and order tough guy in public. I'm wondering what your thoughts about him and the man that you know, and that the media tries to stereotype in a certain way.
Well, you're right. I always wish that more people knew the side of Donald Trump that I know. Obviously, having 2 kids of my own, I can tell you that he is an awesome grandfather, and he doesn't get to see his grandkids nearly as much as he would like. The first thing he asks me every time I see him, how are Luke and Carolina? How's everybody at home? He cares so much about this country. And I think oftentimes people forget that. People forget that this is a man that didn't need to do this job. Right. He had a great life before becoming president. Everybody, by and large, liked Donald Trump. Hollywood, mainstream media. He was a person that a lot of people went to get his opinion about things. on both sides of the aisle. So by running for president, he knew what he was taking on. He knew that he was in for a fight. But I can tell you, he does this because he cares so much about this country, to make sure this country is set up properly for his grandchildren and their peers and future generations. This is a country that was really close, I think, to being lost. And I think a lot of people understand that, and they felt that in 2016. And it needed tough love. We needed somebody like Donald Trump to come in and maybe say things differently than we wanted to hear them. No sugarcoating, no buttering things up, but giving it to us straight and doing what needed to be done. But he's a guy that really cares, that loves his family like all of us, loves spending time with us. None of us get to see each other as much as we'd like, but I'll tell you, when we're all together, we have some of the greatest laughs, and he is truly one of the greatest storytellers I've ever met in my life. I always look forward to our family gatherings and dinners together. But I wish more people knew that, and I wish more people remembered the Donald Trump from 10 years ago, from even 6 years ago, that didn't need this job, but did it because he knew he probably was our last hope.
Lara Trump, always a pleasure to see you. And, look, you have that, I know you have that degree, that French Culinary Institute degree. Are you baking some stuff? I mean, what's going on over there?
Well, I'll tell you, since we've been kind of quarantined at home, I've been doing things that my son can help me do, like making Rice Krispie treats and sort of easier things. We'll work up to, some real fancy desserts one day. But as we've been home, I've been trying to do things to involve the kids. So we have been cooking, and you can ask my husband about that. Even he will say that we've been doing a lot more cooking around the house.
Great, a new segment, Cooking with Lara Trump, here on the Pod's Honest Truth. Hey, Lara, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Stay safe, the whole family.
Thank you. You too.